And we're back with episode 5. I got a special guest. Name is Griffin Little. He's an athlete that I've known since he was a freshman, I believe. Freshman?
Yeah,
freshman in high school. And he has a very unique story. And I'm glad that he's on. I'll go right into it and let him get a little more about himself, and then we'll dive right into it. So, Griff, can you kind of share a little bit about who you are, and then we'll dive into it?
Yeah, so I'm Griffin Little. I've been with Traction for 4 going on 5 years now. I started off with AWP and then it rotated into Traction, but I'm a tight end and I play for Bowling Green State University in Ohio. I played at Homestead High School. That's about it.
That's about it. It's a lot more than that.
Yeah,
and Griff is I call him Gryffindor. Not knowing that your middle name was Doran at all. I call him Gryffindor. And your mom actually told me a story about when you were born. She met some little guy, and he was asking about your name, and she told the name, and he was a big Harry Potter fan or something like that, and your mom knew nothing about Harry Potter. And so I didn't realize until a couple of days ago that I call you Gryffindor, and your middle name is actually Doran.
Yeah.
So it actually goes together. But Griffin is an athlete that has trained up under our system for the last 4 years, 5 years, and he has a really interesting story as he's battled a lot of adversity. He is after he graduated from high school and through his high school career, he became one of the top players in the state. And, it didn't start that way. And so, he has a very interesting journey of development, and I'll let him, kind of talk to you guys about, where he started at and kind of what his focus was. Because he came into this and he just wanted to play varsity football. He had a very low goal. And mom just wanted him to become a better young man. And that obviously is what it's about. But Griffin came in with a very low goal, and he surpassed that and superseded that quite, by large amounts. And so, Griff, if you can kind of talk to him about your journey, about how you started, how you got into football, because from what I understand, you started very young with picking up a football. So talk to us about that and how you got into it.
Yeah, so according to my parents, I don't know how true it is, but the first word that I spoke when I was a kid was ball. I don't know if they told you that, but yeah, I started playing flag football when I was like 4, probably 5. Mm-hmm. My dad was always my coach, and I grew up playing that, and didn't transition into tackle football till 5th grade, where I played PAL with the Dolphins. I was actually a quarterback at the time, but I actually didn't like it at first because I didn't really have the greatest experience with my coaches. Mm-hmm. So I actually took a break from football for that year, and in that gap year in 6th grade, I played flag football, had a good year there, and then decided I want to go back and get back into football. So when I went to Woodside, I played there, and then went to Summit for 8th grade, played there, and then the rest is history. Just played at Homestead for 4 years.
Mm-hmm. And the first time I met you, we met at the Summit, and we were meeting. Your mom came with a calendar with like her whole life planned out, and it was like intimidating actually because she was super organized, and she was on point with everything, and all she wanted was, how can you help my child become a better individual, a better human being? And I was at the time focused on how can we help you, achieve the goals in football. And what happened was that Griffin, as a Homestead athlete, started playing 7-on-7. I think when you first started, was it the first year that you actually started training, you played 7-on-7 or?
Yeah, it was my 9th grade going into my sophomore year.
Yeah, and this is when, you hear me talk a lot about the process and how you just don't know what you're getting when you deal with young people. He is a little bit different than Ethan Chambers, but similar as it relates to Ethan was a guy that you just didn't know what you were going to get. Griffin was somewhat like that as well, but he trained and he got to a point where he played 7-on-7, and I remember vividly we were in, I believe, Louisville, Kentucky. Was it Louisville, Kentucky?
I don't know if it was Louisville,
but it was Kentucky. It was in Kentucky, and we went through the whole tournament, and this dude went up and caught one pass, And I don't know if it seemed like it was over the whole team, but I think it was like over 2 people. But he caught one pass. And when I seen it, I was like, oh my gosh, this dude got something in the tank. And so from that moment on, I started to really challenge him to pull some stuff out of him, because, you know, anything that he has been able to manifest is because he's already had it in him. There was no secret to adding to him. It was just pulling everything up out of him. And we were able to help him pull out some things. And from that moment moving forward, he still had a desire just to play varsity football, which I thought was a very, very low goal. And he went to a point where he played freshman, sophomore year, he played junior varsity. And then his big leap happened from sophomore year to junior year. And so talk to us about the process of the leap that you took from sophomore year to junior year and how that kind of just took you to where you are right now.
Yeah, so you're exactly right. I didn't really have a high goal for myself. I just wanted to be decent at high school football and get on the field. But, basically towards the end of my sophomore year, you and I started talking more and came up with the idea that maybe I should transition. Because I was at first a wide receiver. I was probably like 6'1", 6'2", 175, 180. And we came up with the idea that maybe I should transition into more of a tight end role. And in that off season, I remember we were doing skill in the mornings before school at like 6 a.m. And then after I was lifting. So the goal was to put on as much weight as possible. And in that off season, I put on like 35 pounds. So, and gained an inch. So in my junior
Wait, can you say that? You put on how many pounds?
35. And
can you please tell the people how you put on 35 pounds and you actually kept your speed and didn't lose anything?
It was all about diet.
Okay. So diet is important.
Very.
Okay.
Yeah, it taught me right away.
That's good to know, because I think a lot of athletes, and just, you know, athletes, just keep it at athletes, but they work extremely hard in the weight room and they don't eat properly. And so it's like you do all this work and then you go backwards once you leave the actual, weight room or, turf or area or whatever. So you actually put on 35 pounds and then you converted to tight end. But prior to moving to tight end, you were training at receiver the whole time.
Oh, yeah. So I was still gaining the benefits of being a receiver, being able to run routes, and then putting on the weight to be able to put my hand in the dirt and block as well. So, like, it was really the best of both worlds, and it, like, changed me as a player completely.
And Griff was and when you talk about, like, Bowling Green, he's committed to Bowling Green, or he's at Bowling Green right now. He committed to Bowling Green his senior year. But Bowling Green got probably one of the biggest steals in college football, because Griffin had he's a Power 5 talent, and we'll get into why he trickled down into the MAC, and there's nothing wrong with the MAC at all. It's a wonderful conference to play in, but obviously there's the Big Ten, you have the SEC, those are the Power 5 that every young athlete, really desires to go to. But Griff had that potential and he fell back. And I'll let him dive into how that happened, because I think this is when it gets really interesting about his story and the adversity that he faced and his mindset that had to be, really cultivated, and how people like Donovan Martin play a huge, huge key or role in everything that he had to go through.
Yeah, so after my junior season, I had a pretty solid junior season, and recruiting was looking up, and I thought some offers were going to start to come in, and I had already put on like 5-10 more pounds too, so I was weighing like 220, 225. I was feeling good, and we went to a showcase down in Indy in January. It was January 20th, and the turf was kind of sticky there, and I don't know, the day was kind of feeling weird, but a little bit of backstory. Coming off I played the last 3 games of my junior season with like a type 2 sprained PCL, which was like something I dealt with, but I had to wear a big bulky brace. So it was pretty annoying. But so I was coming off rehab of that, and I'd finally like finished rehab. So I was like, all right, we can go to this showcase. And it was the second one-on-one rep. I was running a curl and just twisted weird, and I actually ended up tearing my ACL and meniscus. And partially tore my MCL, which repairs on its own. But yeah, so then did pre-surgery rehab, which basically was trying to get the swelling down and get mobility back in my leg, and I had surgery on February 8th. So
now tell the viewers what you stated or what you said after you which is from my view, when he tore his ACL, I knew it was a tough time, but when he did it, it was one of those moments where, for me, somebody who's been working to help him in the system for so long, once he tore his ACL, I didn't know it was a torn ACL. I was hoping that it wasn't a torn ACL, but I was already prepared mentally to focus on the road that he had ahead of him. And so when he tore it, he said something that I was just like, oh my gosh, this dude is going away right now. So tell the viewers what you said at that time, in the moment where.
Yeah, so my emotions were obviously running pretty high, but the trainer that was at the showcase came over and did this knee test, which basically is what they do when they think you might have torn something in your leg. And the test was basically showed that I did tear. And my first reaction was, I said, I don't think I'm ever going to play football again or something like that, which obviously it was just not the right thing to say. And obviously it was untrue, but I just didn't think I was going to get any offers. All this stuff was dwelling on me in the moment, and it just kind of consumed me and brought me to the worst. But I mean, everything turned out good in the end, obviously. But
it did turn out good. And that's for athletes that do suffer from whether it's injuries, whether it's setbacks, adversity. One of the things that I think was really healthy in Griffin's situation was that life is nothing more than just problems, and our ability to solve the problems determine the type of lifestyle we live. And it's all about mentality and the mindset that you have. And so when he tore his ACL, it was good from a standpoint of he went through a process following that. He had to find himself, because so often athletes put so much emphasis on sports, and we put so much focus on what we're doing, and that's not who we are. That's just something that we engage in, and it's something that can help us develop who we are. And so when he went through that process, one of the things that I wanted to make sure that he was aware was that you always, in anything that you do, you always have to find the hand of God in it. And so that will, I think, give you some peace and some ease as you go through situations, because none of us are going to go through life without being tried and tested. And so the ACL that he suffered the first time, I said first time, and so we're just now getting into this story with him. The ACL that he suffered the first time was just a challenge to prove whether he had the mindset to really get over the hump. And although he had it in him, it had to be activated. It couldn't be dormant. So he had to find himself throughout that process. And I think the journey of him actually recovering was really healthy for him as a human being, as a young man, because I think he found himself. And that actually led to another situation that occurred this year, recently. It was this year. So talk to us about that, because you're finding yourself now in this moment of your life.
Yeah. So I early enrolled at Bowling Green in December, but because of COVID, I was only there for just under 2 months. But we came back. We got to come back in July, first week of July, and everything was going good. I was starting to, my knee was basically not a bother anymore. I was getting quicker. I was getting stronger, faster, all that, and starting to learn the offense. And I mean, our season was canceled at the time. There wasn't supposed to be any games. But we were still practicing, and we were doing one-on-ones, and it was one-on-ones again. And it was the outside leg again, and blew my knee again, tore my ACL again in September. So I mean, it was pretty distinct feeling too. I remember it very, very vividly. I stood up and I basically threw my helmet, but I could tell right away that what it was, because it's just a distinct feeling. I don't know how to explain it, but it was hard, and broke out in tears, and it was just a tough moment for me. But that day I found a lot of clarity in talking to my mom and Dre. Like, I was able to not feel so bad for myself because I realized I'd already been through it, and there was a lot of growth that I could make in the next, 8-9 months when I'm recovering from this. So I just wanted to take it head on, and I actually was in a good state of mind before going into surgery. So, I mean, the second ACL was definitely better for me mentally. Like, it didn't hit me as hard because I was more prepared for it. But, yeah. And
I'm sure one of the inspirational statements or quotes your mom said was, "You got this."
Oh, yeah.
That's Miss Little's statement. Mrs. Little's statement. She's our yoga instructor, and she does a phenomenal job working with athletes and being able to get them to see it to be more than just yoga. And so she does a really great job. Her and Mrs. Antwaller, who do our yoga. And talk to us a little bit more about your parents, because your parents are, they are really, really good people. And they have done a phenomenal job of not necessarily forcing you to do anything, but more so just trying to help you throughout the process. And, your mom always says, if Griffin doesn't want to do it, we won't do it. And so they're not forceful parents or anything like that. They're very, very knowledgeable about processes. You have a very interesting dynamic in the family household.
Oh, yeah.
Maggie. I remember going over to the house and having a long debate with your brother, and you can see the passion. And then you have an older brother who's kind of just a little bit more chill. And so you have a dynamic over there at the household.
Oh, yeah.
That it will probably be a sitcom if you guys just recorded sitting at the table and having dinner. So talk to us more about your mom and your dad, and because you're the youngest.
Yeah.
You're the youngest, and so you're the baby of the group. And no matter how old you get, mom always, this whole baby thing that she does or whatever, she's my baby. But talk to us about that and how they've really been advocates and promoters and pushers of your growth and development.
Oh, yeah, I'm very thankful for my parents and everything they've done for me. Like, it took me I'm not gonna lie, it took me a long time to really fully realize how great they are and what they really do for me. But coming into my life and maturing, I've realized how amazing they are and all the amazing things they've done for me. When the first thing that came to my head when you were talking about my mom is, I remember it was while I was rehabbing for my first ACL, and I was having a little bit of a hard time, but I had just started to get some college offers. And my mom straight up asked me, she's like, if you don't want to play college football, you don't have to, which is crazy to me, because at the time it would be me turning down a free college education. Yeah. So she's basically saying, we don't care about the college education, we care about you, how you're doing and what you want to do with your life. So looking back on that, I just feel blessed for them. And they would always, I always like to say, my mom would drive me to workouts. She would take me to those 6 a.m. skills over at the summit. She didn't even really complain. It was always just she'll find something to do while I'm working out. So I love her for that. And my dad has just been a good role model for me, really. Him and my mom both have taught me a lot of respect and how to respect my elders, and just to be a good man and treat people like you want to be treated, which is basic. But if you really take hold of that, you can become a great person. But
and I can attest to that as well, because the Littles have had a big role in traction and really helping, and whether it be just small stuff. From the details of the facility and all of these things, and your mom's in charge of the parent gallery, and she's supposed to make it look good and everything like that. But
she probably likes that.
Your mom came in, and this is the interesting thing that I always reflect on when I see your mom, is that when I first met her, I never would have envisioned that she would have even been a part of what's going on right now, right? And so she came in with her calendar. It was everything scheduled out. She crossed her legs. She was really focused. It was a little intimidating because she was about her business. And then obviously your dad was there too as well. But she is now a huge piece in traction. And she started off as just a parent, bringing a big-headed child, huge-headed child into the facility. And now she's she's doing yoga. She's, you can say mentor, but helping with young athletes, building strong relationships. She's just all over the place with interactions. So I think that's interesting to see the dynamics. And then dad obviously has a huge role in it too as well. So, they helped with the open house the first year that we actually transitioned over, because your dad's a pretty successful businessman. And so he understands business and he does business really, really well. And so it's always been good to, kind of see the full circle of how you came in. You guys were looking for help. You were given help and the resources, and then it turned full circle to where now your mom and dad end up getting involved and helping. And so it's just a full circle of help and assistance that's going on as it relates to that. You're at Bowling Green right now, and, man, they got to steal. Just be real about the situation. You don't have to say it. I'll say it for you. Okay. But they got to steal. And they got, I believe, one of the best tight ends in the city. In the city, state, and even in the country. Like, to me, you were one of the best tight ends in the country coming out of your class. Now, granted, obviously, everybody's like, he's 6'2.5", whatever. That's irrelevant in my mind if you can play the game. But you're one of the best tight ends, and you go to Bowling Green. Talk to us about your recruiting process, because the recruiting process is really important. Like, I'm a big fan of educating people on the recruiting process and what you look for, and just being aware instead of making decisions out of nowhere. Talk to us about how you handle recruiting, because it kind of got crazy a little bit after a while.
So obviously things were slower with my knee because I don't know if you know much about like tearing ACLs, but it's like a kind of scary thing for a coach, because people can have like I don't know if it's like genetic, but people just tear their ACLs a lot. And it seems to be like a revolving process. So it's kind of scary for a lot of coaches. So coaches were asking to see my doctor's notes. They were asking to get write-ups from my therapist, to see videos of me doing my rehab, like little stuff like that. And the offers slowly started to come in. They were pretty slow, but my first offer was Air Force, and then Indiana State, and my first FBS school was Bowling Green. So that was honestly just to kind of get ahead. That was a big reason I went there. They didn't care about my knee. They knew about it right away, and they told me on the phone when they first offered me. They literally told me we don't care about your knee. We trust you. We trust your ability to recover from this, and we just want to trust you as a player, and we know what you can do. So that was a big thing for me. But towards the end, I ended up committing at the end of May. And in May, I ended up getting, like, Ball State and Western Michigan. So there were some schools that, like, waited a little too long. So, like, I still took them all into consideration, but I was just really set on Bowling Green, because when I went and visited there, I fell in love with the coaches and how they treated me, and the goal they had in mind, and the offense. But if I could give a recommendation to, like, a recruit or parents with recruits, I would not, like, mark any school off your list. That'd be the biggest thing, because like when I got offered by Bowling Green, like it wasn't like, oh, I'm going there. Like I literally had no idea. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know the coaches. When I went on the visit, to be honest, I was like not expecting anything at all. Like I just wanted to make sure I did my due diligence and went to every school, but they turned out to be the right fit for me. So I would just make sure you really dive in and make sure you have the right fit, because you're making that decision for the next 4 to 5 years. And towards the end of my recruiting process, I got some interest from some Power 5 schools, because they saw how I had recovered and I was playing my senior season. But with that came an opportunity to go play for Louisville. But in the end, I ended up turning it down. And the biggest thing that I could say to a recruit from that is, don't worry so much about the college level. Like, playing Power 5 is a great dream and it's a great goal. But at the end of the day, like, if you're good enough, you'll go to the NFL. Like it doesn't matter what level you play at. So I was happy with my decision to go to Bowling Green, and I felt like I could do the best. I could become the best man and the best player there. So the temptation to go to a Power 5 school was there, but in the end, I think that I made the right decision.
Yeah, and I agree. And the comparison that I always tell young men, because we deal so much with young men, is that it's okay to have a desire to date the best looking girl. Like, everybody wants to date the best looking girl. And that doesn't mean that she's the best thing for you. And so recruiting is similar to actually finding somebody to be with, because you got to find somebody that's going to help you maximize who you are. And, that's some advice that me and Griff, we went back and forth. And Griff was a guy who did so much homework on schools. Like, I remember he couldn't even participate in 7-on-7, but he'll be on the visits and he'll have a list. I think it was in your phone or your notebook or something like that. He have a list of all the schools and what he value, and if the values matched up, and if they didn't match up, how they were rated on the list. So he went through a process where he was literally evaluating schools and trying to get the facts of situations instead of just saying, well, I'll go, because the typical recruit would have went to Louisville.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I mean, it was attracting. Even somebody that's outside watching, you's like, oh, Louisville's attractive. Like, but he stuck with it, and he rolled out with Bowling Green, and you'll see, a lot of good things come out, as it relates to him playing the game of football at Bowling Green. And like he says, if you are good enough to play at the highest level, they'll find you. So the school that you can get the most opportunity at when it comes to playing, and we're talking just from an athletic standpoint, that's probably the best school for you, because you need to be seen in order to be given a chance to be evaluated at the next level. So one of the things that you went through as well, that I think is important for people, and Ethan Chambers I think he went through it as well, but when you were at Homestead, you made some of the biggest improvement from their feedback from sophomore year to junior year. But prior to that, because of some injuries that plagued you a little bit, you probably weren't considered to do what you did your junior year. And so to kind of talk about the focus that you had to have going from sophomore year to junior year, and because you elevated throughout the whole season.
Yeah.
When you were a junior.
Yeah, personally, I would consider myself sophomore year a very, not even average player. Like, I was below average. Like, it was
very below
average. Like, I was not a good player.
Scrub.
All right, calm down. Yeah, I was not good. I was uncoordinated. I wasn't that big. I wasn't that fast. But there were like little spots where I felt like I could be great. And going into that off season where I knew I needed to get better, because I was not gonna be the first receiver on the depth chart. Somebody was gonna play over me. I know I needed to prove myself that I was good enough to play the first spot, and I needed to prove to my coaches that I was good enough. So it was a lot of hard work, to be honest. I just remember days where I just didn't feel like going to work out, but I knew I had to, because I just had a different drive and passion to where I wanted to start so bad. And then in the off season, when I finally got to start proving myself to the coaches, I remember specifically there was this Northeast Indiana skills camp, which was a camp ran by the coaches in Northeast Indiana. And we did a 7-on-7 session, and I balled out, and one of my coaches saw me and noticed it. So little things like that, I was just piecing together the process, and I had to do everything right to prove to them that I could start. So the new Pal scrimmage that we had, I played pretty good in that, and they noticed that. And then the Snyder scrimmage, and it was all coming together to where I was not, before long, I wasn't competing for a varsity spot because I already had that. I was competing for targets, and I was competing for more attention and to get more throws in the game. So by the time the season came around, I had gained my coach's trust, and I was able to do pretty good for myself. So I was proud of myself for that.
Yeah, he had a tremendous development that happened from sophomore to junior year. And I think one of the things that the players should know is what all he had to actually do and what he was doing and who was supporting him. And so Donovan Martin is a person that people don't know a lot about, and they should know a lot about him because he's our sports psychologist. And he works with our athletes, and he helps athletes maximize their performance. And we all, not just athletes, and this is why he's important, every human being needs psychological help. Every human being. And I know people don't like to think that because they tend to think that means that they're crazy. And if you are interpreting that that's what it is, then I'm not saying that's what it is, but I'll agree with you. But he actually helped him psychologically get over some of the humps and the barriers that he had going into his junior year. And Griffin spent time not only going to see Donovan to figure out what his process was, because his process is different than another person's process or another athlete's process. He has to do what works for him. And he will watch film as well. And we will watch film, every single week. And it will be watching over the technique. And so he was watching film. He was doing yoga. He was spending time with Donovan more. And talk to us a little bit about your experience with Donovan, because Donovan, man, I think he actually helped you elevate your game to a level that you probably wouldn't have been at.
Yeah, I would say he helped me elevate to a whole nother level, because the mental side of sports is very oftentimes overlooked.
Mm-hmm.
But I was able to tap into it. I think I started meeting with him around January of my sophomore year of high school.
Mm-hmm.
So it was before my junior season. It was when I was starting to get into training and try and get better. So we would meet once a week and really just dive into the mental aspect of the game and how important it is to the littlest things, like trust yourself, have a different motivation,
mm-hmm.
believe in yourself. There was all these different aspects that we dove into, but he was able to mold it, like you said, around for me. And he could pick out things that I was not good at all, and help me to actually enhance it. And so when I was playing games, I had these little techniques that we would come up
mm-hmm.
with that would help me keep focused, keep confident, and let's say as a receiver, if you drop a ball, a lot of people that gets to their head,
mm-hmm.
and it can affect the rest of their game. He taught me how to take that drop,
mm-hmm.
put it away so you don't have another drop the rest of the game. So just little stuff like that. And then the time where he really came in the biggest for me was during my ACL recovery, because a lot of with that is being comfortable, because you're naturally scared of getting hurt again.
Yeah.
So we did visionary techniques where I would envision myself when I was healthy, actually meditate on it, and did little stuff I would look at myself in the mirror before the game and tell myself I was going to be okay, just because I didn't want to be a head case on the field, because then I couldn't be a good player.
Mm-hmm.
So all this little stuff that he did for me was tremendous, and we're still working today, and obviously I need it right now because I'm going through a big phase in my life, big challenge, but I'm grateful for everything he did for me. And I would if you want to really, really excel your game, you got to get with Donovan.
Absolutely. And Griffin's another story of how children and athletes that are growing up and developing need a supporting team. They need people that can provide support for them, whether it's through resources, whether it's through encouragement, words of wisdom. They need that. And you can see Griffin producing at a high level, but you have to be able to look at the team that he support himself with. And so I would encourage all athletes to identify a team that is going to help you get to where you want to get to, and not an emotional team. And so one of the things that I do appreciate about your mom and your dad is that they were always seeking to know about the process and learn about the process. And they didn't allow their sincerity of wanting you to be good get in the way of them actually leading you to where you should be going. And so oftentimes parents and just really just people in positions of leadership, just our sincerity of wanting to help somebody does not qualify us to lead people. And we have to be able to become educated on the process of what it takes to get to a certain point. That way our knowledge and our sincerity can match up, and that way we can get them to where they need to get to or help them get to where they want to get to. So Griffin, man, he's a dude to look out for. He's had a tremendous journey, and his journey is only going to get better as he stays locked into it. And so, Griff, I definitely appreciate you being on, man, and we look forward to seeing you doing great things at Bowling Green, and wearing I think it's a 2X helmet. So whatever, he's gonna be the dude on the team with the biggest helmet. And so, is there anything that you wanna give to the athletes before you sign off?
If I could give one thing to anybody listening, it's stay persistent, and when you get down bad, when you have issues, realize it could be worse.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was one of the biggest things for me is I realized I still had my legs.
Mm-hmm.
There's people that don't have legs. Finding little stuff like that and being able to really understand yourself will help you be a better man and get through any challenge you have.
Well, I appreciate you coming on, and we're going to sign off on that one.
Sounds good.
All right.